What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. Your girl is back. Your girl is back and recovering from COVID. Mostly recovered. 92/3% recovered. Honestly, by the time you guys watch this, I'll probably be good. Worst symptom, maybe not the worst, but like the longest lasting symptom, definitely fatigue. Definitely just like I could sleep for 16 hours right now. And don't get me wrong, I've always been a girl who loves some sleep, okay? Like I'll sleep any time of the day. Car sleep is my favorite kind of sleep. Like I like sleeping, okay? But I've never been the kind of person who like will just sleep straight through for like 16, 17 hours, wake up for 2 or 3 hours, and then just go right back to sleep. Like that's never been me. But it sure is me now. Like, but yeah, no, hubby and I are doing well. Family is recovering, and I haven't seen my brother since well before Christmas, so I'm actually really excited because I will hopefully be able to go see him this weekend. So that's really exciting, and I'm super excited to be getting back into making content for you guys again. Before I got sick, the plan was to like stream for like the week leading up to Christmas. That didn't happen, but I did manage to get enough energy to stream on New Year's Eve, and honestly it was so wonderful. So I'm really looking forward to getting into streaming more, getting into some daytime streams, because I had a really great time, and I honestly just like that aspect of hanging out with y'all and like a live format. You know what I'm feeling? Like, you know, y'all feel me, y'all get it. Etty Houston, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe and sanitized. Today, we are here to watch SCP-303, The Doorman. It is an SCP animation. I've been really into these SCP animations, just because like it gives my brain something to do while learning about the SCP. As much as I really enjoy the Exploring series with SCP and the Volgun, sometimes like my brain does wander just because I like have to be like staring at one spot on the screen and like reading and stuff. Anyway, I'm saying all that to say I'm really into these animations. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Agent Carla Mendoza was one of the best field agents that Site-41 had ever seen. She was professional, cool under pressure, and when the situation demanded it, she could be a straight-up badass. During a Chaos Insurgency raid on the site, she'd single-handedly killed 4 different insurgents, the last one with her bare hands. During containment breaches, she'd always be the first one charging into the fray, her Foundation standard issue Beretta drawn and ready to fire. Agent Mendoza was so devoted to the job that she took up the site director's offer to start living on site, so she could always be there to help if an emergency situation unfolded.
I hope you got a raise for that, girl, because if you're gonna be on call 24/7, that sounds like you need to get paid 24/7. Just because you work for the SCP Foundation does not mean that they get to exploit your labor, Carla. Viva la revolution!
After all, when it all hits the fan, you want someone as utterly unshakable as Agent Mendoza on your side. The job had thrown the worst of the worst at her, and she'd never even flinched. So surely nothing could scare Agent Mendoza, right? After a long day of kicking ass, taking names, and filling in the properly mandated amount of SCP Foundation debriefing paperwork, Agent Mendoza retired to her Site-41 quarters. She felt exhausted and sweaty, so before heading to bed to watch some wonderful SCP Explained videos on her phone, how kind, she decided to take a quick shower. The last thing she expected was for this particular shower to become, well, let's say, Hitchcockian.
Oh, she gonna
the
get
water
stabbed?
was running hot and clean, filling the air with steam. Agent Mendoza was lathering up her hair when she first heard the noise. Heavy, wheezing breaths coming from just behind the shower curtain. The second she heard it, Agent Mendoza felt a kind of brutal, crushing anxiety that she'd never experienced before. Like a hand was reaching into her chest and squeezing her heart. The self-defense training that had been encoded into her muscle memory over years of working at the Foundation kicked into effect. In a blind panic, she struck out at the shower curtain, causing it to sway outwards and land directly on the face of Mendoza's wheezing voyeur. Who or whatever it was standing right there, less than a meter away from the shower. The wheezing carved into Mendoza's ears like a butcher's knife.
Not a butcher's knife.
What an awful, monstrous sound.
What you mean,
and despite the
bitch?
fact that the shower curtain obscured its face, she could still somehow see it. The way a defenseless animal can sense an approaching predator without ever locking eyes on it, and just somehow know that it's too late for them to escape now. Every training session, every achievement, every piece of battle-hardening experience, it all evaporated in the presence of that thing.
No, girl,
Mendoza was so terrified she might as well have been a child. The monster just stood there beyond the curtain, its raw, fleshy face parted into a freakishly wide, yellow-toothed grin. She didn't know how, but on some deep primal level, she was aware that if this thing got its hands on her, something horrific beyond description would happen to her.
I like how they have her still
showering. She was too terrified to even move a muscle in its presence. She remained like that, standing in the shower and sobbing quietly for the next 3 solid hours, until the creature finally disappeared.
3
when her
hours,
colleagues found
bitch?
her, she'd experienced moderate scalding wounds from the hot water of the shower. It took several hours for Agent Mendoza to compose herself enough to share her story. A couple days later, Tim Ellis, a junior-level filing clerk, was found trapped in a Site-41 supply closet. He'd urinated in his Foundation-issued slacks and was in a state of borderline catatonia. When his superiors asked him why he'd been spending 2 hours in a supply closet on company time,
of course that's what
he
y'all
reported
are
that it was
about.
because a monster had appeared outside the door when he was searching for a replacement stapler. Despite never actually opening the door to see what was outside or call for help, Mr. Ellis said that he felt as though he would have had a heart attack if he actually opened that accursed door. He was able to provide a clear description of the monster. He said it was tall and emaciated, with reddish-brown skin that made it seem almost burnt or rotten. While it stood there and waited beyond the supply closet door, it let out the most awful wheezing noise, like an old, rusty iron lung.
Oh my God.
But the image that Ellis seemed most fixated on was the monster's face, or lack thereof. Just a huge, grinning mouth that covered up its entire head, stocked with an arsenal of massive yellow teeth. Ellis was visibly shivering as he talked about it. 2 incidents are an unpleasant coincidence, but 3 are a bona fide pattern. And it didn't take long for more sightings of this strange new anomaly, dubbed SCP-303 or the Doorman, to pop up across the site. It earned that name by always appearing behind some kind of doorway, or at least a movable divider, in the case of Agent Mendoza's shower curtain. Whenever it appeared outside a doorway, nearby Foundation personnel would report being struck with a sudden paralyzing terror that made engaging with the creature impossible. Attempts to call for help were also often stifled, as the very presence of the doorman causes disruptions to electrical equipment. Whenever the doorman manifests in your proximity, it's safe to say that it'll be commanding your absolute undivided attention.
Got it.
This was a particularly frightening case for the SCP Foundation, because it was one of the few anomalies bringing the fight directly to
He said,
them.
let's go, I'm ready.
Most sentient anomalous beings would do anything to avoid getting captured by the SCP Foundation and contained in one of their high-security sites, full of experienced researchers and state-of-the-art equipment designed specifically to neutralize their effects. The Doorman, however, just seemed to take this as a challenge, turning even the most hardcore personnel on the site into gibbering wrecks with its mere presence.
Doorman said, I'm sipping tea in your hood. What the fuck is up? I'm sipping tea in your hood. What the fuck is up? He's like, I ain't scared. I ain't scared. Come fight me. You won't. You won't. I like that. It's bold.
But the Doorman was just getting started. Agent Henderson had a frightening encounter in the break room. He was pulling a long shift and just wanted to grab some coffee creamer from the cabinet. However, as he approached the cabinet, he heard the telltale wheezing and that terrible, overwhelming terror set in once more. The Doorman was sitting inside the cabinet in a fetal position. He just knew it. Could this thing really appear just anywhere as it pleased and keep people in or out until it decided to dematerialize and torment somebody else? When the creature finally dematerialized and the cabinet was examined, the coffee creamer was found to be missing, leaving Agent Henderson distraught. This was the first recorded instance of the doorman stealing a physical item, but it would be far from the last.
He a thief
Henderson
too?
wondered
Now
whether the creature that had just humiliated him was sitting somewhere else now, sipping from a warm cup of joe with its big freakish mouth and laughing at him.
Okay, you are
fixating. But a few
fixating
incidents
now.
after this, things would become considerably more serious. The doorman was about to take its first life.
Wait. Okay, but see, so they're saying he's about to take his first life. But listen, okay? Cause was I the only person who, my auntie, obviously, like everybody's auntie would be like, oh, don't ever lie. But my auntie used to be like, my TT, I used to call her TT. But my TT used to be like, don't lie, because if you lie, you'll steal. And if you steal, you'll kill, right? First and foremost, like, that is a logical fallacy. And as an adult, I now understand that, right? Like, just because I lie doesn't mean I'm immediately gonna kill somebody. But he a thief and he a killer. So you know what? Maybe my TT was right. Maybe my TT was onto something. You know? Y'all feel me? Y'all feel me? Y'all feel me?
Isn't really that simple, if you want to get into the semantics of the thing.
Okay.
But the body of Dr. Barker was found inside the second-floor storage room after a spree of SCP-303 incidents. The question was naturally posed as to whether the doorman had gotten more dangerous and finally directly attacked one of its victims.
Did he just die of a heart attack?
Not quite. There had only been one way in and out of the storage room, a secured decompression chamber, and the doorman had appeared inside this chamber while Dr. Barker was in the storage room, effectively trapping him inside with the sheer terror it causes in its victims.
Okay.
He was trapped in the room for a grand total of 5 days, at which point he finally died of dehydration, and the doorman demanifested shortly afterward. The staff of Site-41 scaled up their countermeasure efforts, hoping to discover more about and perhaps even trap and contain the infamous doorman.
Do some of your countermeasure efforts include making sure that there is a supply of food and water in every room in the facility? Because I feel like that should be part of it. Homie wouldn't have died if he would have had water bottles laying around like me and my husband do around our house. In every room in this house, you can find at least 1 or 2 half-empty water bottles. I promise you that. I promise you. And probably 2 or 3 full ones if we're being real.
Dr. Burroughs, Researcher Matthews, 4 members of security personnel, and 4 D-Class operatives formed a kind of strike team, ready for quick dispatches whenever the doorman happened to manifest. It wasn't long before the creature appeared in a room on the first floor, but the team quickly intercepted its location, ready and eager to gather more data on the mysterious being that had been terrorizing them all for weeks. Dr. Burroughs ordered one of the D-Classes to open the door and look inside, but the D-Class refused out of fear. The doctor told him that if he didn't open the door, he'd be transferred to SCP-682 duty. The D-Class frantically shook his head and said, "I'd rather take my chances with the reptile than go in there." The doctor was getting frustrated. He told the D-Class that if he didn't open the door immediately, he'd be terminated right there on the spot. The D-Class still refused, saying that he'd take death over what the doorman would do to him if he stepped inside. Without hesitation, Dr. Burroughs ordered one of the security officers to shoot the D-Class then and there. The shot was fired. The D-Class was terminated. Dr. Burroughs then ordered a female D-Class who just witnessed this callous execution to open the door, or the same abrupt death would befall her.
And
she
said,
still refused, then began to describe the awful things she believed the doorman would do to her if she went inside. Researcher Matthews was visibly shaken by the description. Dr. Burroughs decided not to terminate this D-Class immediately. He instead wanted to see just how much pressure the doorman's anomalous fear-based resistance mechanisms could take. Another D-Class was given a combat knife, and also given the order to cut the female D-Class with it every time she refused and ordered to go inside. After 2 hours of repeated asking from Dr. Burroughs, the female D-Class dropped dead from blood loss. At no point did she ever attempt to open the door. It seemed that in all the cases for those in the thrall of the doorman's anomalous effects, Death is a truly preferable alternative to ever facing it head-on.
Oh,
It's
shit.
worth mentioning that these tests were conducted back in the 1970s, before the formation of the Foundation's Ethics Committee,
Clearly.
which explains why their methods feel a little needlessly cruel. Since then, the Doorman has fully commandeered the second-floor storage room, the same one where it caused Dr. Barker's death. It only leaves the room to steal more items from around the
But
site.
for what?
These items have included a cryotube, 3 sets of standard Foundation surgical equipment, 2 D-class research cadavers, 1 gasoline-powered generator, a variety of chemicals from the chemical storage areas, and, of course, poor Agent Henderson's can of powdered coffee creamer.
Damn.
The reason for the Doorman taking an interest in these particular items remains unknown, but we can only assume that nothing good
I was
can
gonna
come
say
of
probably
it.
nothing
And there you
good.
have it, folks. The strange, frightening, and eerily inconclusive tale of the Doorman.
Yeah, that's
all we can
fucked up.
really say is that we're awfully glad he's fixated on bothering Site-41, because who knows what would happen if he widened his net to the rest of us. Thankfully, we won't need to think about that. Oh, that's odd. Can you hear that? I thought I was imagining it. Though come to think of it, I can't help but feel a little uneasy right now. Do you ever get that feeling that you're being watched? Wait.
I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I got no privacy. I always feel like watching me.
Well, that was really interesting. I do hate how open-ended the ending is for that. You know, he's not contained. So if he's not contained, does that make him Keter, whatever? Does that make him that? You guys let me know. Y'all tell me, because y'all, you know, I get confused. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your reaction requests and recommendations down in the comments below. And other than that, peace out, Ho Biscuits. It's Skittin' Lit.